Hey everyone, and welcome to my channel. My name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist, and I'm always excited to try something new, and something new has come across my desk which I'd like to show you. Now this is going to be a part 1 and a part 2 because I'm actually looking at some of the materials that I love to use the most and how I use them. So today I'd like to show you some brush tip markers. They're new to me, if not new to the market, and they are quite interesting actually. Before we get on to that, let's do the housekeeping. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and comment and hype if you can, you know, the usual stuff. And I do also have a membership option on here now, so that gives you a long video a week, a long video a month. Oh goodness, I took a bet with myself that I'd probably say that wrong, and there we go, I won again. So I'm taking myself out to lunch. You get a long format video per month, and you see the normal Friday video a little bit earlier. There are all sorts of other perks as well. However, if you want to see more long format videos, and for really great value actually, do consider joining my Patreon, because that's where I spend a lot of my time and building a really great community. I think they're pretty great, and we do all sorts of art things over there with mixed media. So if you want to learn to paint, or learn to do mixed media, or level up your game, or if you're doing it already and want to see something slightly different, come over and have a look and see what we're doing. You would be most welcome. Right. A couple of years ago, I think now, time does fly, I did a review of a new company called Woomer, and they had some coloured pencils, and I got them and I thought, well, let's have a look. And I tell you what, they are absolutely brilliant. And I did do a video on them, and I will try to remember to link it here for you, so that you can see. But Woomer pencils are fabulous. They are really right up there with my favourite Derwents and Caran d'Ache. And I never thought I would say that. Excuse me. Allergy weather again. So when they contacted me and asked me whether I would like to see their brush tip markers, I said absolutely and yes, and a few other very, very big superlatives, because I would love to see the brush tip markers. So they sent me a little box of 72. Now, I love the box. It's not too big and not too small, so it's a bit too big to really show off here, but you can see the idea. It's got a lovely lot in it. They come there's a few different sets with these. This is a 72 one. Now, these are water-based ink. They're waterproof, they're odorless, but they are not light fast. They last a long time, and the actual ink in them lasts a long time, and you can use them for a while, but they're not light fast as such. Some will always be a little bit more light fast than others, but if you are selling your work or putting it up on the wall, you need to know if it's light fast. How to get round this? Well, a couple of ways. Number one, I work a lot in sketchbooks, so I use these sorts of things for sketchbook work. I also take prints, and I'm developing stickers of my work and all sorts of things like that. So these are brilliant for that, and that's why I like them. Why else I like these sorts of things is because although I can very easily paint with a brush and paint, and have been doing it for over 45 years, sometimes I want something easy and fun, and these are easy and fun. I like them. I really love to just pick up the pen, give it a shake, and get on with it. So that's another reason why I love them. I like this little tiered system. So you've got all these little clips on the side which hold it together, and each one then is sitting in its own little tray, which is also rather nice. Let me see if I get all of them open. Who knew you were going to be sitting here watching somebody undo clips on a box? Don't tell me your life is not exciting. Right, take that away. It's got a handle. You can tote it if you want to, but I tend to stay quite close to my studio, so it's not necessary for me. There's some gorgeous colours. Now, I have done some swatches, and I will show you the gorgeous colours in person. If I undo all the clips, I knew I would miss one. I like this set because it's got a lot of earth tones in it, and I've missed. And I paint a lot of nature. As if you are a regular to this, or indeed one of my patrons who are watching this first, hi, you will know I paint a lot of natural things. So I think that just about gets them all in. There are one or two colours that make me run for the hills. This is one of them, although because I don't do neon colours. However, it's not as bad as it looks. So very, very quickly, what is a brush tip marker? Well, this is an ink. It's an acrylic ink rather than an acrylic paint. That's for starters. The caps, it's got a cap on it. Most of them have. It's got the barrel. You can hear that little mixing ball, so that's good to know. And what makes it a brush tip marker as opposed to any other sort of marker, like a fine tip, bullet head, wedge, chisel, any of those, is it's got this little felt tip on it. Now, you don't have to prime these by jumping up and down a few times with them, you know, sort of thing, pumping them and priming them. The ink is there, and as long as they're stored horizontally and this little felt tip stays nice and juicy, you're good to go. So I like them, convenient. I like convenience colours. Again, I do know how to mix paint. I just don't always want to. And if I want to go out and paint some things, I'll grab one or two and put them into kits and take them with me. So that's that. I shall pop these aside because we shall need them in a minute for a small demonstration. Where do I use acrylic markers? I use acrylic markers in two ways. Either as a base coat, and mixed media art, as you may or may not know, works in layers. So our first layer is the one where we fill shapes and do big things like putting skies in, things like that. And then we have a second layer where it's refined and a third layer of details. And there can be several stages in amongst each layer. So I use, yes, my dog obviously knows a lot more about it than I do, so I apologise for the barking in the background. I use acrylic okay, Days? Yeah, nothing. I use acrylic markers in two ways, either for the base layer or for highlights and finishing off. Because they're acrylic, they'll go over the top of a lot of other things. And this is the thing with mixed media. You're going to throw everything at a picture. I'll give you some examples. Here's one I've done where I have started off with pan pastel. There's a watercolour sea, there's watercolour rocks, there's a bit of everything here, but a crucial thing, all the highlights are done with these brush tip markers. So that's where I would use them. There's more. Oh yes, this is actually a tutorial up on my Patreon at the moment. What we did it last Friday. Again, I've started with watercolour and gouache this time. Actually, not watercolour, this is gouache. And then gone in with other bits and pieces, some coloured pencils. But the highlights on all these little things and these whole leaves are done with these brush tip markers. Let me see if I've got any others in here that might be useful. Not really. This is actually this one, yes, this is a collage, and the highlights on some of the, well, actually it's a bit of both. It's a painted bird, some painted leaves, painted sky, a couple of collage leaves, and the highlights are done with brush tip markers because and this is how I personally use them. And if you listen to a million people on the internet, they'll tell you a million different things. This is how I use them. Here, different bits and pieces that I've been doing. Highlights on my birds. These sorts of flowers. Sorry, if I get on camera, that'd be even better, wouldn't it? These sorts of flowers here. Just details like that. There may be some more in here, because I've had them for a while. Yep, these sorts of things. The flowers and the leaves, things that you want to stand out. All of these, this sort of thing. Other bits. Yeah, so Lots and lots of ways you can use brush tip markers. So like I said, either for the undercoat or the highlight. And because today is part 1, I'm going to show you how I use it as a base coat. And, oh, actually I have another one here. This one is a collage. When I say collage, all of these pieces start off as white paper, and what I do is I paint them and then cut them out. So I paint them as if I was just painting normally, but then I cut them out and I arrange them differently. And you might say, well, why the hell do you bother doing that? Why don't you just paint? Reasonable question. I just like to be able to cut. Sometimes I haven't got time to do much, but I've got time to make a fish or a slice of tomato. And it's really, really useful to be able to move them around and decide where I want to put them. So I cut a stencil to make the tiles and did those with gouache. And again, it's very much mixed media. Then there's some brush tip markers. So a couple of points here. The lemon highlights, the lemon seeds around there. The ends of the bread, the tomato seeds, the tomato skin, some of these other bits and pieces around the tomato. All of that is done with brush tip markers. So those are the places where I'm very likely to use them. Right, so, and the other thing is like I said, you can go from scratch, and that's important for the next bit. So I've actually prepared some swatches here of the colours that are in the box because I thought it was probably the quickest way to do it. And the reason I've done this in advance is because, of course, it takes a while, and I want to show you dry how they are. They are quite matte and velvety, and that's really, really important when you're doing mixed media, because I love Liquitex. Liquitex is one of my favourite brands, but famously, their paints and their markers dry very shiny. And as a mixed media artist, it's almost impossible to get things to go over the top of them. The only thing you can do is put more of the same, or you can, just find one or two things will work. So, it's just not quite as easy. Whereas when you get a product that dries matte and smooth and velvety, you can actually do a lot with that. Let's show you what I mean. I'm going to grab some colours here. That one. Just enjoy doing this. The only thing I've got to say is they're a little bit hard to get out sometimes. So what I do is to press the end, which is probably what you're supposed to do, and then they just pop up and you can grab them. That's the best possible way. I want some greys as well. Let's get some greys. There's it's a nice mix of colours. And yeah, like I said, I like all the earthy tones. I would like some really dark greens. Again, that would be another teensy criticism, not really a criticism. I just like them so much, I'd like more of them. Right, so I'm going to paint a little mushroom. I don't often bring the season so far forward because we're not really into mushroom season in my brain yet, but we're doing it. So I like the way they cover. They're quite juicy. They also lay down reasonably wet sometimes, depending on the area you're covering. I've actually made this mushroom a little bit bigger because then you can see it, which is always a good thing when you're on video. They're quite juicy, but some of them can be a bit wet. Now, that's a good thing because it gives you time to blend with others. And if you get the tip a little bit contaminated with another colour, having a bit of scribble paper next to you is really good to clean it. Let me see if I've got one that has some. No, obviously not. Well, if I do dirty some, I will. I'll show you. I didn't remember to shake the red, but it's still really lovely and vibrant. So this is a light grey. Let's come down with this. Let's make a little sort of bit on the bottom there. Like I said, there is a definite time for mushrooms, and this isn't it. We're still here in the northern hemisphere where I am. We're still very much in our summer. Put a few little beginnings here. Some white marks. I'm going to put a bit of shadow there. Not really. There's a little bit there, but all I do is give it a bit of a scribble and it'll clean itself without any problems. This is probably going to get a few marks on it. Just bring that round there. See, you can blend them a little bit, and I'll be using other mixed media materials as well, so we're good. The one thing you need to sometimes, yeah, see, there we go, there's a little bit, good. So now, if you do that a few times, it'll go away. Normally what I would do is actually fix that with some hairspray. And that's all I use is hairspray. Cheap hairspray, fix it, and then you can go over the top of it. It's an ink, not an acrylic paint. It's got to flow through this sort of quite sophisticated system here. So therefore, it's not always going to be completely opaque. That's not a fault, that's expected. When we paint enough, we get to know our things, and we know that sometimes that just happens. So if you end up with something like, you know, here, for example, you want bright white on there, well, you're not necessarily going to get it. So what we would do in that situation is we would just keep building up the colour. For example, let it dry, because don't forget, wet on wet blends, wet on dry layers. So let it dry, fix it if you need to, and then come back and repeat it until they're bright enough. That, like I said, it's not considered a fault, it's just how some materials are. I'm going to just dry that, and I'm going to come back and actually, I reckon it is dry. I'll dry it properly because one never knows. And then I'm going to put some shadow on there because I got so carried away with the grey I forgot, and it doesn't matter. Just do it this way. That's nice and dry, but of course, like I said, being mixed media, I use all sorts of things. This is actually a pan pastel. I got fed up with the glare on the really shiny lids, and I couldn't see which colour was which. They were just all sort of whited out in the glare from my window. So I cut some spots out of card and put some of the colour on it. A very, very quick, inexpert label. And now I know what colour it is. So it's Indian red oxide. Oh, it's red iron oxide, extra dark. And I'm going to put it on here. Going to also turn this around because otherwise I'll get it everywhere. Guaranteed to get it everywhere. But as you can see, over the top of the markers, the pan pastel gives a really lovely blend. And it honestly is great for that sort of thing. It looks nice and natural too, once I turn it up the right way. I've got one of the Woomer pencils here because I thought, well, that would only be polite if they have a product out. And like I said, I just love the creaminess that it goes on with. Okay, we're getting a little mushroom here. And over the top of the markers. Going to just go around here. Some of these mushrooms have got a little bit of frilly bits on the bottom, so just darken that up, add some texture. This one is taupe grey, and it's very nice, warm grey. Very interested in a warm grey wherever I can find it. Okay. So I'm going to fix that because of the pan pastel on there, and then we can come back and finish the mushroom. Buckling nicely. It's actually not meant for this sort of thing. It's a Jackson's brand sketchbook that I demonstrate in, and it's nice paper actually, but it's not meant for wet media. And when you fix things, whether it's with a proper fixative or hairspray as I'm using from Lidl, and I've been doing that for a very long time as well, in case anybody people write in from time to time and say, do you know what you're doing? Yes, I've been at this a while. So yes, you can use that. And of course the pan pastel's now fixed in place with it. 2 reasons. 1, because it's messy and I'll get it everywhere. 2 is it's not necessarily non-toxic. The pan pastels need to be fixed. These are non-toxic by the looks, and yeah, that's a good thing. Right, so we've got some paint, we've got some white here, so I'm just going to go over. I blend sometimes with my fingers because you can get a much nicer soft effect. I don't want that grey outline. That's fine. I have done these in grey as you saw me do, and now I've fixed it, I can just go over the top again, and you can do this as many times as you need to. See, what will probably happen eventually as these sort of dry and sit for a bit is they'll go a little bit darker, and then you can come back and just top these up again. And I find it's not like I'm saying that you have to do this 150 million times and then you'll get yourself a picture. 3 times is usually the amount of time you need to to go over a part of a picture to get the highlights nice and bright. And again, I use that to my advantage, as you saw in the leaves. If I can find them again here, I will quite often go over the leaves once, and then you go over the leaves again, but you don't go over the whole lot. You only go over the ones you want to be slightly brighter. I use the tone that I'm getting from the marker to work in my favour. So instead of having 3 colours, then I only need the one. But parts of the picture that I want to be the brightest, I'll just touch up until they are bright enough. Some of them I can get a yellow, say, for example, if in the green setting here, if the green I want is not quite bright enough or light enough, I rarely add white to it because it'll go a chalky colour, but I will add green and yellow. Yellow will lighten green. So you make, you can interleave that. So you make a layer of green, put yellow and green over the top. Lean in to the it's not really transparency, not at all. Lean into the fact that it doesn't cover perfectly. Use that to your advantage as you're painting, because that opens up a whole world of being able to glaze things. Glazing, of course, meaning to put a light transparent layer or very, very light layer over the top of something else, and it brings it to life. I've glazed this background here with an oil pastel. So, you can do watercolour. Glazes and washes, that's what watercolour's built up from in its very pure sense. Please don't be insulted if you're a proper watercolour artist. But, I lean into those properties with these, and I get to know my materials by using them. So I will know that the white in this set does one thing, the white in another set, because there's always a white, the white in the next set, that does something different. I don't need to do so many with that one. With this one, I know, right, okay, it does this, but it's great for this. The other one, I can't do that because it's too much, whatever this is. So yeah, you get to know your materials. So here is my little mushroom. I probably wouldn't, I've blown so much hot air over it talking. It's probably ready if I'm going to do it at all. Here again, I'm on white paper, so you can't really see, but these are just a little bit sort of duller because they do that, and I can just blend that with my finger because there's just enough pigment there, it's fixed, don't forget, to give a bit of a shade there, which brings these out more. And add to that, if I had a background not being on white paper, you'd see the fact that some of them were just over the top, over the edge here. Right, that's it. Very short and sharp, short and sweet. I really like these. I really rate them. I wish there were more darker greens and probably a couple of really dark browns. But there is a bigger set and they have different colours as well. Okay, so I think that's all I needed to say. They really do speak for themselves. And the other thing I like about them is the price is within most people's grasp. They are at the budget end, and as you probably know by now, I'm not snobby with my art. I like to try a lot of things, and budget brands, they're going to make a big impact on the market because they're very good for the price you're paying. If you allow the fact that they're not completely light fast, but then neither are some of the better ones. So yeah, and like I said, their pencils, they're worth trying too. You can see the richness of tone that you can get with just 2 or 3 things. I didn't even need to use all the greys. I could have done the whole mushroom with just these, but mixed media, I want to use other things. So I hope that was nice to see and informative. They're certainly worth having. The usual codes in the description box if you want to, turn looking to buying. That's there for you, but otherwise something to watch out for. Like I said, definitely don't be snobby about them. They're fabulous. I use mine every day. Right, I'll see you all again next time. Thank you so much for spending the time with me. Bye for now. Bye.